You're sharing already, so then I just perfect.
Okay. So tonight we're going to continue our study on the book What is Spiritism? And tonight we're going to cover the pages 82 to 88, which is the second dialogue between a visitor and Allan Kardec.
The skeptic.
The skeptic, yeah. So, can you see when I change
Yes.
pages? Okay, so it's working. So the
Yeah.
other wasn't
I know what was
working.
going on last time.
Yeah, so now it's working. Oh, so here is saying previous class, but actually, is that the topics that we're gonna discuss tonight? So we're gonna start with hallucination, and then the magnet fluid, dissenting opinions.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's wrong. Yeah, I think it's wrong, but that's okay. So in the content, it's right. So the first topic that we're going to discuss. So the visitor asked a question to Allan Kardec, asking if the phenomena from the Spiritism was caused by hallucination. And if you just think about that, back in the day, we're talking about 160 years ago. And a lot of people, I think they stopped believing, especially in Europe, they stopped believing in religion and faith because of like all the Catholic movement that happened in the 1500s. So I totally understand when people were very critical on Spiritism back in the day, and they trying to find what was behind, because I imagine how many people was taking advantage of the faith and manipulating everything. So when I read the questions from the visitor, the skeptic, I was just trying to put myself on his shoes. Like maybe he doesn't believe in God, or he has a completely different view of God the way we have right now, because it's much easier right now. We think, oh, that question was ridiculous, do you know? But back in the day, we didn't have much information, so that's why
it's actually very present, this questioning. If you watch any documentary about spiritualism and mediumship, you're gonna see this, you're gonna stumble on the same questions that the skeptic on the book was questioning.
Yeah. Yeah,
and people will still try to question if hallucination could be one of the possibilities. Only they put in other terms like, oh, maybe the brain waves and seizures would justify this phenomena or something like that.
Yeah, it's super interesting to see. But what I was trying to say is, like, today, especially us who are studying, we have so much content, like a lot of books, videos, people sharing experience. But that back in the day, like the Spiritism was born, do you know, like was the beginning of everything. So if now people still have questions, can we imagine 160 years ago how like unknowledgeable we used to be? When I say we, because we believe in reincarnation, so who knows, maybe we were one of those asking questions and not believing in anything. But the answer that Allan Kardec said was quite long, but I tried to get like the core of his response was, supposing that true, that hallucination was causing the effect through an effect of their imagination, mediums believe they are seeing something that does not actually exist. Is that possible that an entire community could caught up in the same figment of the imagination? Because right now, I don't think we are seeing like a lot of physical phenomena or physical demonstration of the mediumship. But back in the day, we were talking about turning tables. We were talking about objects levitating and holding themselves in the air for a few minutes and then falling down to the floor. So hallucination would be super interesting if they are like in an event with like 20 people, 30 people, and everybody could see. So
Collective hallucination.
yeah. So right now, if you go to a spiritist center, it's not common that you're gonna see any physical mediumship demonstration. Do you know? Like we know some places they may have some cases, but it's not something that it's gonna be easy to find. But back in the day, that's where the phenomena they're discussing. So it will be pretty hard to imagine like the community hallucinations, everybody collected, hallucinating the same thing without any drugs. Because if everybody was having some drugs, we could talk. Yeah, that could be a possibility. But no, and we need to think about these meetings were held by the high society at the time. So it's like well known and well
Respected.
people, yeah, respected, but people educated, people well educated, do you know? Like so they have went to college, they have graduated in multiple schools sometimes. So, and they were able to see the turning tables, and that was like a public event for them. So that's why I think it's very interesting if we can put ourselves in their shoes, on their perspective, like back in the day, and seeing a table turning, what would be our reaction? And yeah, so I don't think hallucination was something possible because we are talking about like multiple people in different locations, different countries, and having the same phenomena. And so the next question was about magnet fluid. And that's very interesting because that was the first actually thought for Allan Kardec. So if you remember on the beginning of the book, uh, when the turning tables movement started, Allan Kardec didn't believe, and he went to see because some of his friends, people that he respect, start telling him about that, and he thought, oh, if these people are talking about that, maybe it's true. But he believed it was a kind of like a trick, and he went himself to inspect everything, and when he couldn't find the magnet fluid or any trick or any systems, and he started seeing the turning tables happening in different locations with different people, then he realized like, oh, this is not a trick. There is an intelligence behind everything. And I love this quote. If every effect has a cause, then every intelligent effect has an intelligent cause. If you were the effect a fluid, wouldn't we have to say the fluid was intelligent? So it's very interesting to see because what he was trying to say, at least for me, is how a turning table can be intelligent. Do you know? Like, it's a table. So it's not the table or the magnet fluids on the table who is making the table turn.
It wasn't just the turning. By that point, it was the answering of questions.
Yeah.
So these tables in brackets were answering very hardcore answers to very, intelligent questions that he asked.
Yeah.
So he was like, okay, a table cannot rationalize and give answers. So this mustn't be the cause of the answer. There must be something behind the movement of the table giving the answers. And then that's what they call spirit.
Yeah.
I think it was this part that he says, if the telegraph is writing a message, it's not the wooden arm of the telegram that is intelligent and it's writing a message. There's an intelligence behind it. It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's very interesting. So the next one is thought reflection. And I took some time to understand that, like how someone could come up with like a theory of mediumship could be a thought reflection.
Yeah,
Like
this one is very different.
Yeah, that's what would be. So, and Allan Kardec asked a question back. Could thought be actually reflected on surface, like light, sound, or heat? That would be truly something that would stoke science interest. Because, like, the question doesn't make sense, like, so it looks like some people was just throwing away theories.
Or maybe what he meant was like, if humans have a supernatural ability, some humans have to like capture the thoughts in the air. Like something that we don't really understand right now, but could come to understand better in the future. Like, I don't know, another sense.
Yeah, it was super interesting to see this question, and I stopped for a moment to reflect on that, and I got in the same conclusion that you did.
It was almost like a theory of telepathy.
But
he was thinking it must be, you're telepathically getting something from another living person, like this is the reflection of someone that's leaving. These are the thoughts of someone who's leaving, because they could not accept that there was a possibility of a spirit, like someone who's not alive reflecting those ideas on the medium or the table or whatever it was that they were using, the basket with the pen, the pencil or whatever it was.
So that was a very interesting theory, and I love that the question back, because he didn't say much. He just threw another question as an answer, which explains everything for me. So I thought it was like very interesting. And then we get the disbeliever cannot see in order to be convinced. And that's something I think that's a very modern topic, because as we discussed in the beginning of the meeting, even now people are thinking about, this is hallucination or something else. Some people will think the earth is flat. Some people will believe the earth is rounded. And there's a lot of discussion on that. And what Allan Kardec was saying about that, so the visitor asked, is it actual phenomena that these believers would like to see, that they ask for, and that the most of the time they cannot be furnished with? So the visitor was trying to say, why you guys are not showing like the meetings to everyone? because if everyone could see and could present, they would believe. And that's not true. Even now, like, we have so many examples of afterlife experience, and a lot of people, they don't believe. And now I would say we have a lot of proof, like people who can come back and told where they used to live or who they were, secrets, and it's still, like, we still have a lot of people who don't believe, even with all these proofs. So thinking about back in the day, what Allan Kardec has said, what the naturalists do when they want to study the habits of the animals, do they command them to do a such and a such thing? So what he was trying to say is, like, people who want to believe, they want to command everything. Oh, that needs to happen right now to prove me. But the naturalists, when they are studying the animal's behavior, they let the animal's behavior do their things, and they keep looking and studying. And with spirits who are way more intelligent than animals and way more independent because they are like us. So it's a very naive uh, ask, do you know, like, oh, you have to do that right now just to please me because I don't believe in you. So it's a very child demonstration of power. You need to make me believe because I don't believe. But if we bring that to the modern days, it's very hard to convince someone, you know, because even if you show all the facts, some people, they will never believe because they don't want to believe. They want to ask questions, they want to initiate discussions, but they don't want to learn. Otherwise, they will get a book, they would check some studies, they will participate in spirit centers. There's so much information out there they could consume. So that's why I think it's very interesting, because I know a lot of people who are trying to convince others on their beliefs. And I did that as well, like in the past, say, hey, this is true, that makes sense. And nowadays, I just respect. Like, it's okay, you believe whatever you believe, and that's my belief, and that's it. Because I have enough facts to base my beliefs. And but some people, they will need more experience, and even then they may not be convinced. So on that question about showing the spiritism meetings public, do you know, like to everyone, the newspapers and everything, wouldn't change anything.
Well, that was happening already back then, but people were more curious to see it as a trend than to investigate it, to study it, I guess. So even Kardec, at the beginning of this chapter, he qualifies the different types of spiritists. He says you have the curious ones that have nothing, they're just there for fun. You have and they call themselves spiritists, but they're not. And then he said the true spiritists are the ones who are observing, learning from the teachings, and applying to their lives. Because if they're not changing, if they're not applying that to their lives, what's the point? This is not a philosophy to be discussing and questioning the world about. It's something to question ourselves about. So
I totally agree. And then we go to the last one. So spirits good will convince. And all that's All that being said, it seems that spirits ought to be interested in making converts. Why they don't lend themselves more than they do to ways that would convince certain individuals whose opinion will have great influence. So it's again, it's the combination, do you know, like, oh, but how they don't show themselves or influence people who are have power of like communication to speak with the masses. And Allan Kardec has a very good answer to that, like, because apparently for now they are not interested in convincing certain individuals. So and I like the last part. I will admit that this is not very flattering, but we cannot control their options, their opinions.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, and who, I think he's very clear.
yeah,
People who think they have great power or great influence, they might be living a delusion. So that's their opinion of themselves. Like, we're working with the right people to take the information forward,
yeah,
to do what matters.
yeah. And even now, like, trying to convince people to believe on what us believe, it, it's tough. You know, we're seeing like wars because some people will believe in one god, or in a type of gods, and the other people will believe in a different type of gods, and they will fight. So people will be convinced on what they want, because luckily right now there's so much information. We can research and we can learn almost about everything. So I think that's a blast of the time that we are living now. It's the information age that if you want to learn more, we can. So convincing people, I don't think is a good option even now. And back in the day, I agree. Like, I
And
don't think.
even
Yeah,
the belief in the spirits itself, the belief itself, or in spirits or the phenomena, is not the most important in the end. There's the whole gospel is more important.
yeah,
Like, so in the end, that you could live a well balanced life, a moral life, and be good uh, to your brothers and sisters, and that would be all there is. That will be the most important thing, even if you don't believe in the communication with the spirits and
yeah,
everything. So, yeah. But although it's very comforting to have all these explanations and have things making sense around you, for, all your questions, your philosophical questions for why we're here and
yeah,
why things happen the way they happen, answered, right?
yeah, yeah. I rather have the information than not having the information.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like, the most important thing is not the information; it's what we do with the information. Is the transformation that we do on ourselves, and how we can improve ourselves in the directions to be good, improve our happiness, serve others, and, and living a meaningful life. So I think that's my takeaway for Spiritism. Um, it's how I can be a better human being, and how I can serve better, and how I can manage my emotions in a better way, because I have the information that I'm not the victim here, and everything has a cause and an effect. And if I want a different outcome, I need to change the form of what I'm doing. So yeah, I totally agree with you. That's a very good point. And yes, that was the last topic for tonight. So on our next public meeting will be by the end of the month, on 28th of September, and we are going to continue with the pages 88 to 96. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how can I do that?
Let's click here.
Yeah.
Okay,
I will
so we
do that.
stop the
Stop.
recording.